Hey everyone, welcome back to Breakthrough Innovation, where we talk with the minds building the future behind the scenes. Today's guest is Jon Bradford, an entrepreneur, investor, and innovation engine who's been instrumental in helping launch and grow over 100 startups through his work at CoLab, LA's leading venture studio. Over the last decade, Jon has helped entrepreneurs raise over $400 million in capital, with his portfolio companies reaching $2 billion plus in valuation. Additionally, he has 9 companies which were acquired or achieved an initial public offering. So whether it's launching AI-powered music startups, transforming how we shop for CBD, or advertising ventures that aim to reshape health and science, Jon is a builder of bold ideas long before they hit the headlines. Jon, we're thrilled to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thanks, JL, for having me. Looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
Awesome. So maybe starting off, tell us a little bit about kind of who you are and how you ended up where you are.
Yeah, so I am Los Angeles based and have been out here my entire entrepreneurial career. Came out to LA back in 2013 in pursuit of my first real tech venture, if you will, and was fortunate enough to sell my first company 6 months after I got there. So
Nice.
very quick exit. Consider that my fast forwarded MBA, if you will.
There you go.
Yeah.
Trial by fire.
Yes, exactly. And I did that through an accelerator program. And in particular, I was an entrepreneur in residence at that accelerator program, which means a lot of different things at a lot of different places. But with this program, what it meant was they were going to introduce me to a lot of other people that they thought could potentially co-invest or even, potentially acquire something that we would build, as a part of their investment. And was able to, find an opportunity in the domaining space and sell a company to a company that was being acquired by GoDaddy at the time. And after that, I really thought about that model and that experience and the connections that I had built, throughout the process of being an EIR. And a lot of the response that I got was, why should I give you my ideas? Why wouldn't I just, build it myself? And I think it was really the model that was challenging to them, like they were going to give me something that I was going to own the most of. And then I was still suggesting that they maybe throw in a little bit of money too, to
Right.
own a piece of, something that they were giving me. So after thinking through that experience and thinking about what would have been, more attractive, originally my inspiration for CoLab was really flipping the accelerator model on its head. And, as opposed to being more experienced entrepreneurs that have done a lot of things and investing in a lot of stuff, hoping that one or two, really make it happen. We were going to be a little bit more selective and a younger group of people that know how to build sort of modern, technology. And really have enabled the founders that we partnered with to focus on the aspects of the business where they bring sort of unique, things to the table. And it's been going pretty well.
I like that concept of not relying on the shotgun approach, so to speak. Let's try as many things as we can and see what sticks. It doesn't never felt efficient to me. But I'm curious, when you talk about finding the ones that you feel like are going to work, what are the patterns you look for? What are things that tell you this company is going to break through and this one isn't?
Yeah, we're an extremely people-centric organization, both with choosing the companies we want to work with and how we build companies. So the main question I ask myself when evaluating an opportunity is, why is this entrepreneur or these entrepreneurs or these people more qualified to execute on this idea than if I were to just do it myself? Because they're really coming to me telling me that they've got the next great thing, and all they need are my resources, to make it happen. And I've done so many different things across so many different industries. I think that I could make a pretty good run, at pretty much anything, and certainly could support anyone doing anything at this point, but really want to feel like that key differentiator are the people driving the initiative, forward. And also want to make sure that there's an aspect of that I can help isolate and help them hyper focus on, moving forward, while I can make sure that all other aspects of the business are sort of being met and built at the same time.
Yeah, I know Warren Buffett, or maybe it was Steve Jobs, or maybe it was both of them, said something along the lines of, we hire really great people and then get out of their way, which always resonated with me. When you're talking to these entrepreneurs, Is it their domain skill that you're looking at? Is it their leadership ability? Is it their approach to innovation?
It depends. I have chosen people to be special for different reasons. Sometimes I've helped bring in a CEO pretty quickly to a situation that I think is, very promising as well. Yes, domain expertise typically plays a lot in the thing. Just being in LA, we have had the opportunity to work with a lot of celebrities and people in the entertainment business. And there are nuances, inside of that can certainly be harnessed and help kind of boost things from an initial standpoint that are highly interesting, to us. But yeah, really, it's a superpower. Sometimes it's an entrepreneur that maybe has an existing business that could make the perfect first customer, for another business to exist, and there's sort of expertise in that, circumstance. Other times it's network, other times it's following, lots of different things.
So maybe another question to ask around this, given your experience, what are some of the biggest myths you see about innovation in early stage companies?
Myths about innovation. I don't know. Truthfully, it's funny. I feel like I don't see early stage innovate enough, which is ironic, right? Like
Right.
they are, building to a point. But when I first started this thing, there was like this major shift in the internet where it used to take 6 years to know whether or not, a company could really be successful, right? And I felt like I was getting in at the 6 month era, right? Like where it was in 6 months, I'll know whether or not this is something I should really pursue. Now I feel like we're almost in the 6th day,
Yeah.
now. And as that transition's happening, some of the older mindset, hasn't, totally caught up. So I feel like I'm all about sort of cut and measure, and taking small actionable steps and this approach. But I think that maybe, I don't know, some things should be scrapped sooner, some things should maybe be explored a little bit further. But especially in this day and age, given the aid of AI and the ability we have to kind of validate, concepts and ideas, nobody should build anything just because they think they should at this point,
Right.
right? And that used to be the hypothesis of starting something new, right? And that made a lot of sense. And it maybe took 6 months to figure out whether or not they should. But I think the tools are readily available now to know at a much faster pace.
I think the myth that I hear you talking about it is that you have time,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
that is true. I mean, the number of companies doing the same thing at this point too, like also has been multiplied. The number of companies, just in general, being started is at an extreme high, and any time's passed.
And actually, I'll refine what I said. The myth isn't that you have time, maybe, so much as the myth is that you need time.
Yes, I would say that that's true.
I know when we work with companies on innovation, whether they're big or small, I think the first thing we try and dispel is that it has to take weeks or months to do anything innovative.
Uh,
And I think the small companies that have that level of agility, days, if not hours, is doable.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I filmed a TV show once upon a time, and it never made it to air, but it was going to be one of the major networks, Shark Tank alternatives, and had a bunch of high profile investors that you pitched at the end. But the concept was they locked me in a room for 72 hours with a person with an idea that had no expertise on how to build anything. And me and my team, I had two people with me, were going to, do something so that we could pitch it to the investors at the end of 72 hours, right? Well, there were two other companies in there. They were building all kinds of stuff, hardware, everything. I sourced a product from Alibaba in like 45 minutes. I put up a landing page and I ran $100, Google ad campaign for pre-orders of
Yeah.
the product I was reselling from Alibaba. I did more than a thousand revenue in like 12 hours. And I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm just going to wait until, we have to pitch. And they wouldn't let me leave the room. So the next 60 hours were really just me and my friends making the most ridiculous, things.
Catching
But
up, telling stories.
Meanwhile, the other two teams, were building all this stuff, trying to like accomplish all these things, and sure enough, we won and got funded, and it was interesting, but still 12 hours, right? Like that was all I needed to. The commitment I got was hundreds of thousands of dollars, many of them, to go and actually execute on this thing past that. And it was, yes, it was, for TV. So there's an element of that. But actually, like having done a bunch of these pitches and seen it, even more of them, this is pretty sound.
Right.
This makes sense,
There's some truth to the fact that money talks, right? Like if you can show that there is interest in a product that people are willing to pay for, that's the first step. Like why build any more than you have to before you prove that? The moment you prove that, invest, do what you need to do to make it real. But until you've proved that, you do the minimum absolutely possible to get there.
Absolutely. So, going to something I alluded to a little bit, previous in the conversation was sort of our people-centric, approach. And really my sort of, pitch to the founders that are considering me just as much as I'm considering them is that, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And I don't really believe in the notion that founders should wear a lot of hats, because that to me implies that they are doing jobs where there are others more qualified to be doing them. And the joke I always make is our company certainly was not operating nearly as well when I was still in charge of the accounting department. Gotta hire specialists. So in terms of, building these startups, I have found that the quickest way to achieve success, which oftentimes ends up being the cheapest way, too, is to use the highest skilled person possible for any given task, right? And that's really sort of what I personally work with the founders to do, is sort of evaluate the needs, tap the appropriate people, and make sure that all the stuff is being done, to the highest maximum potential.
Absolutely.
And again, that's enabling the founders to stay focused on doing what they do best, which is usually something around developing the business. And it's also providing a level of execution, that looks incredible to customers, investors, all the people that matter in terms of achieving, the next milestone. So I am all about, doing less by stacking the deck with things like that, such as high caliber people, and have found that to be in a very efficient way. And myself personally, like very good at hopping on some calls and brainstorming, but I'm not really executing, either at this point. It's really just about knowing and lining up the folks. And that's kind of my main role within CoLab.
When we hear a lot of times people like, oh, that's so expensive to get all these people together. And my perspective has always been, but it's so expensive not to as well.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the other thing. It would be expensive for an early stage company to have the same people that I have engaged on a full-time, basis. In fact, they wouldn't be able to hire them, right? But because they're engaging them just fractionally, for these individual tasks, it ends up being affordable. And I believe you end up getting a multiplier in impact by combining the work of these highly skilled, people together. So
fractional roles have definitely been on the rise for that exact reason. And I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm all about it. I think that, we're also going to see a lot of, we already are, right? Like these smaller team startups, these very small team startups. And I think that that's probably, whether it goes noticed or not, because many of them have figured out how to use fractional support at a highly efficient way, right? They don't have to claim that head count. They can be the 3-man team that maybe has 50 other sort of supporting elements, that are critical to their success.
No, I agree. Now, obviously you've had success with working with startups and helping them innovate. What are the hurdles you're still trying to clear? Like, what are the challenges that CoLab is still dealing with?
Yeah. There continues to be the evolving landscape of the internet, right? When I first started doing this, it did take longer and it was a lot more expensive to build technology, right? And our value prop around making that sort of cheaper isn't necessarily as important, as it was, towards the beginning. So we've really had to expand a lot beyond just product-centric stuff and doing marketing, and we've developed now a few extremely successful CPG initiatives, and have just kind of further diversified as it was necessary. That being said, I also think that we are a great solution as we've matured for some later stage, companies as well. And we've done a few innovation projects with some blue chip companies, large Fortune 500s, are continuing to look for more to potentially sort of be a skunkworks solution or start up a startup, for them outside of the organization. And we've been really successful, with that in the past, but for whatever reason, it's just not the opportunities that seem to be constantly coming to us nearly as much. So figuring that out a little bit. Yeah, other than that, we actually typically never work on any of our own ideas, but have something cooking internally for the first time in a long time.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that should be interesting. Uh-huh.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so as we get closer to the wrap-up time here, what is the final thought, the takeaway you think is important for our listeners to have here?
Just keep going until something works, I guess, right? Innovate till you die. No. Happy to answer any questions. If my experience can be relevant to anyone else, you guys can feel free to reach me on LinkedIn, or my email is Jon, Jon, at CoLab, COLAB.LA. And I think this is, an exciting topic. I look forward to staying tuned to the podcast. Expect the thoughts around innovation to continue to evolve a lot over the next year and even next 6 months. So
absolutely. Cool. Awesome. Well, Jon, thank you so much for the great conversation. We're really grateful to have had you on the show. I do also want to thank everyone who's made it all the way to the end with us. I encourage you all to take a moment, leave that review, leave that like. And if you know someone who's going to be benefiting from Jon's experience, send them the episode, share the wealth, introduce them to Jon. And then lastly, take an actionable insight from today, apply it, and let us know how it goes, because we're a firm believer in continuous improvement at the personal as well as the professional level. Jon, thank you again. Everyone else, thank you as well. And we'll see you all next time on Breakthrough Innovation.
Thanks. Bye.